Today, the co-founders of Three Arrows Capital speak out about the failure of the hedge fund and of Terra. South Korean authorities raid a Terra co-founder's home. And new data shows just how many millions of dollars in NFTs hackers have stolen. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Tanea McKeel. Digital asset prices back in the green to close out the week. By noon Eastern, Bitcoin traded around $23,000. Ether traded at $1,600, and the meme token Dogecoin jumped to 7 cents. In the past 7 days, Ether has risen by more than 30%. Bitcoin has gained about 12%. For more on this week and what's ahead for crypto, I spoke to Noah Hamman, CEO of AdvisorShares. Kind of exciting week for prices in crypto. Bitcoin, last I checked, up about 13% this morning. Ether about 30% higher for the entire week. To start, what do you make of this rally? Is this meaningful, or are we still kind of looking for a bottom here?
I hope we have found a bottom. So I do like the rally, trying to be a little bit optimistic there. There's been a lot of challenges as we've seen companies struggling, right, from Celsius to Three Arrows. And then even the news that, even Tesla got out of a fairly significant Bitcoin position, though that's, already happened in the past. So while there's probably a little bit more things to shake out a little bit, the devil's in the details with, bankruptcy and things like that as these companies try to deal with their challenges, you could still see a lot more volatility at this price level, maybe even lower. But right now it feels like we found a bottom and we're starting to maybe head up from it a little bit.
Based on what, I guess? I mean, what is kind of moving the markets right now? What is it that we're looking for?
So I think what we're running into now, right, is just this environment with Bitcoin and crypto broadly where, not regulated, not a lot of rules and regs, a lot of significant amount of leverage. And so keep in mind with, firms like Celsius, people had deposited their Bitcoins there and they were hoping to get, outlandish rates of return, which hopefully would have been their first sign to kind of be super cautious and careful and read the fine print. But now they don't have access to that Bitcoin, right? And or it's been liquidated to deal with other issues around, the leverage that was used from these companies that, I don't know how much the investors or the people that were holding their crypto with them understood. But that, I think, has been the problem, right? People's crypto has been locked up or it's been sold against, as collateral against other obligations. And that's put a lot of downward pressure on it. And then again, to find out kind of in hindsight, that Tesla itself moved, plus or minus $1 billion of Bitcoin from a selling perspective. It feels like it's not surprising that we've seen that downward pressure. That's been a big catalyst for it. And I would say as we settle out, which we hope these are the biggest bad news, we're going to hear, and there's not more surprises on the horizon, but it'll be more volatility ahead. I hope we're through these challenges, and I hope we can get closer to a better regulatory environment where you'll see a little bit more stability in the service providers around crypto.
It's been a pretty positive year for regulation, though, despite all of the bad that's going on. I guess we have midterms this year as well. How are you expecting that, if at all, to affect your outlook for crypto?
I think for crypto, I don't know that I'm too worried about the midterms around it. Whereas separately, for example, we have a cannabis fund, and I think that's going to be very impacted by, what politicians are in office in the midterms. But I think for crypto, less so. And I do think we're going to be at an interesting inflection point. You probably saw the news about the SEC charges against a former Coinbase employee for insider trading, which you can only insider trade a security, at least from an SEC's perspective. And SEC has been on the record in the past to call Bitcoin a commodity, not a security. So we're going to be there's going to be a lot of scrutiny around, the regulatory oversight of crypto and Bitcoin in particular. This case could be an interesting precedent-setting item. And I think you're going to have this environment, and I think you were kind of touching on this a little bit with your question, where I think to get future investors, think about financial advisors, things like that, to start to allocate Bitcoin as a part of an asset allocation strategy, there's got to be a lot more stability in the space, right? They don't have a lot of clients that really can stomach the kind of volatility that you've seen in the crypto space and the risk. But at the same time, when regulation comes, for those old timers or service providers in the crypto space, I think it could potentially be challenging, right? It's one of those things where you got to be careful about what you ask for.
What would you say is a good time for investors to get back in the market?
If an investor is managing it on their own, they want to just be mindful of two things, right? Keep an eye on it. It can be volatile. And they have to also decide maybe what kind of investor they are first. That's probably the first place to start. If they want to hold it for 20 years, then just don't look at the price, right? Because it'll just make you crazy. But if they do want risk managed, they can do that with sizing in their portfolio, right? Zero is probably not the right allocation, but it's some number above that. But they want to be careful about sizing, or they just want to have a plan on how they trade around it, right? Maybe when they get in a little bit, but then get out a little bit, but they've got to come up with their own methodology. They can use products. There's plenty of products out there, though most of them are long only. I think we're the only one in an ETF that will manage it tactically.
How do you see crypto finishing this year? Do you have any specific predictions about what happens through the end of this year?
I think higher, right? It'll depend on a lot of different things. And the interesting thing is, you mentioned the midterms and any impacts there. I'd actually probably more watch what the Fed does, right? Is it more tightening or is it more easing? I think more easing will help Bitcoin, quite a bit, but they've been tightening and raising rates. And reducing their balance sheet, right, which is pulling liquidity out of the market. And so people have a tendency to sell what they think are their riskier assets. So that's probably what I'm watching through the rest of the year, is how the Fed's going to move and react. I know they're trying to fight inflation. They'll probably be aggressive, but it won't surprise me that they quickly flip the other way and go back into an easing policy, especially when you think about, the cost of our national debt with interest rates rising. So that's really what I would keep an eye on. I'm optimistic. I think Bitcoin can recover from here. There's still a lot of utility and more people are coming to it to use it. And all those things seem to point, in the right direction, but there also could be a little bit more drama on the horizon as well. So we'll have to see.
Okay, let's get you caught up on the top stories. First, the founders of Three Arrows Capital are finally speaking out after the hedge fund's collapse. In an interview with Bloomberg, Kyle Davies and Su Zhu admitted they weren't prepared for the downturn in the crypto market. They also said they had put too much trust in Terraform Labs and Luna, and that their personal relationship with Do Kwon prevented them from seeing that Terra was, quote, potentially attackable. Now, the founders didn't reveal their location, but their lawyers said they were headed to the United Arab Emirates. Next, the investigation into Terra is heating up in South Korea. Authorities there just raided the home of co-founder Daniel Shin as part of their investigation into the collapse of Luna and Terra USD. Bloomberg also reported that the offices of Chai, the payments platform founded by Shin, were raided too. Finally, Citibank says the contagion caused by the collapse of Terra, Three Arrows, and others has subsided. In a new report, the bank says Ether and staked Ethereum, which is a separate token meant to match the price of Ether, are trading closer in price. Stablecoin and ETF purchases, which are assets investors typically buy to avoid risk, have slowed as well. Citi also sees liquidity risks fading and little danger to the broader economy. Okay, while liquidity risks might be falling in the world of crypto, security risks just keep growing. New data exclusive to CNBC shows hackers are making off with millions from stolen NFTs. CNBC's Avon Javers can explain.
You can call it a crypto crime spree. New data from the analysis firm TRM Labs shows the criminals have stolen as much as $22 million in NFTs using the Discord social media platform just since May. Now, just on June 4th itself, they found there were at least 10 account compromises targeting NFT Discord channels. They may be hitting new targets with names like Secret Llama, Dummies, and Young Ape Club, but the hackers here are using tried and true methods to dupe their victims. TRM Labs says they're using social engineering techniques, sending imposter messages, promoting a false sense of urgency, and hoping to capitalize on victims' FOMO, or fear of missing out on the next big thing. Now, Chris Jancheski is a former IRS criminal investigator. He's now with TRM Labs.
These are all techniques that we've seen before in other types of schemes. It's just now they've pivoted to a new arena, and it's easier to potentially steal one NFT that could be worth tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars than to steal many different types of tokens.
If you think about it, it makes sense that the hackers aren't put off by the crash in NFT prices, since they aren't buying the tokens in the first place. What they care about is whether they can sell them for any value at all. Jancheski says the best ways to protect yourself in NFT land are the best ways to protect yourself everywhere else online too. Know who you're talking to. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And be very careful when you click on any links.
Okay, that's all for Crypto World this week, but we'll be back again on Monday, and we'll see you then.